Welcome to California Death Row, where we're talking about it. There are currently 727 condemned inmates that are currently on death row in California. In 2019, when Governor Gavin Newsom took office, he did send out a reprieve for all of the condemned inmates, and it will stay in place until he is out of office, and whoever comes in office after him can either keep it or they can go back to having executions. The last execution in California was in 2006, so there hasn't been an execution in quite some time. But Governor Newsom, he actually wants to abolish the death penalty in California and eventually across the entire United States. But in order to do that in California, the people of California have to vote for that. And I believe last time there was a vote about the death penalty in 2016, and Californians were for the death penalty. So last time we talked about the dating game killer. Today we're going to talk about the first Richard Ramirez. So the first Richard Ramirez is Richard Raymond Ramirez, and he committed a rape murder on August 21st, 1983. Now, why do I say the first Richard Ramirez? Because the well-known name of Richard Ramirez is the Nighttime Stalker or the Night Stalker, and he was a serial killer who committed murders from roughly June 1984 until August of 1985, and then he was caught August 31st of 1985. So Richard Raymond Ramirez killed before the Night Stalker happened, and he was apprehended. He actually was on death row just before the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, was apprehended. So shortly before 6 a.m. on Monday, November 21st of 1983, a local resident discovered the body of Kimberly Gonzalez in the narrow walkway located a short distance from the rear parking lot of a bar, Mr. Barry's, in the city of Garden Grove in Orange County. Her pants were pulled down around her ankles, and her panties were pulled down to her knees. Subsequent medical tests found traces of semen in her vaginal and anal areas. A total of 19 stab wounds were found on her hands, forearms, chin, shoulders, and neck. A pathologist testified that a wound to the back of Kim's neck, which severed her spinal cord, was the probable cause of death. Kim was 22. She worked as a bank teller for Bank of America, and she lived in Norwalk, which is in Los Angeles County, and she lived with her sister Yvette and Yvette's family. Kim had relatives that lived in Orange County, and she and her good friend Ramona Sanchez often went to two bars in Orange County. So even though Kim lived in Los Angeles, she went to bars in Orange County, and she had some family down there too. Ramona testified that they usually went to Smitty's on Saturday and Mr. Barry's on Sundays. She and Kim went to those places because both bars had dancing. She and Kim knew the regular customers at each bar, and they never had any problems at either place. On November 19th, 1983, that Saturday before her death, Kim mentioned to Ramona that she wanted to go to Mr. Barry's on Sunday evening. However, Ramona told Kim that she already had plans and couldn't go with her. Ramona testified that she had never known Kim to go to a bar by herself. On this occasion, Kim decided to go alone. On Sunday evening, November 20th, Kim borrowed her father's truck from Paulette, which is another sister, and arrived at Mr. Barry's between 8 and 9 p.m. She parked the truck in a well-lit lot in front of a donut shop, which was located in the same shopping center as Mr. Barry's. Ramona testified that she and Kim never parked in the back lot behind Mr. Barry's because it was too dark. On her arrival at Mr. Barry's, Kim talked to Paulino Aldano, a regular customer who bought Kim a drink. Kim then talked to Phil Palomino, the bar's bouncer, and played a game of pool with him. In the early part of that same evening, Richard spent a few hours with a small group of friends and relatives at a bar known as My Place. At around 10 or 11 p.m., the group left My Place and went to Mr. Barry's. Richard drove his own car, which he parked in the front parking area of Mr. Barry's. On his arrival, Richard's brother Daniel bought him a beer, and it was a Budweiser, and it had a long neck, like one of the long-necked beer bottles, which comes into play a little later. So a number of witnesses testified that Daniel and Richard had met Kim and Ramona at Mr. Barry's a week or two before November 20th, when the murder happened. On an earlier occasion, Kim and Ramona had been playing pool when Daniel and Richard approached them, struck up a brief conversation, and then left shortly thereafter. On November 20th, Kim and Richard met again at Mr. Barry's, and a number of patrons observed the two talking, drinking, dancing, and briefly kissing each other in the bar. Several witnesses testified that Kim had quite a bit to drink during the evening. There is a dispute in the evidence whether she had been cut off or she was cautioned by a bouncer. To be cut off means they will no longer serve you alcohol. By 1 a.m., a number of patrons had left Mr. Barry's, but Richard and Kim were still together in the bar, sitting at a table near the jukebox that was close to the rear door. Shortly after 1 a.m., Richard and Kim left the bar by the rear door, which led to a rear parking lot. As he was leaving, Richard was seen carrying a long-necked bottle of Budweiser. It will come again and play a little later. Neither Richard nor Kim returned to the bar. One end of the walkway in which Kim's body was found the next morning is located across from the rear parking area of Mr. Barry's. The remaining patrons in Mr. Barry's left the bar when it closed at 2 a.m. By that time, Richard's car, which had been parked in front of Mr. Barry's, was gone. The bartender testified that she did not notice anything unusual when she left by the rear door about 2 or 2:30 a.m. There were no eyewitnesses to the crime. From the location of the stab wounds on Kim's hand and the displaced shrubbery in the vicinity of her body, the prosecution theorized that Kim had attempted to defend herself from her knife-wielding assailant, but had been overpowered, thrown to the ground, raped, sodomized, and then killed through repeated stabbings. An employee of the coroner's office estimated the time of death as 3 a.m., plus or minus, or perhaps 2 hours. Laboratory tests placed Kim's blood alcohol level at the time of death at approximately 0.17%. So, if you're thinking about her blood alcohol content, the legal limit is 0.08. So that's 2 times, well, a little over 2 times the legal limit. So according to the prosecution, the key piece of evidence tying Richard to the killing was a long-necked Budweiser beer bottle. And remember, there were some witnesses that saw him leaving through that rear door with that beer bottle. And it had Richard's fingerprints that was found by police in the walkway about 30 feet from Kim's body. The expert witness who testified examined the bottle. She was able to positively identify 2 of 10 fingerprints on the bottle as Richard's. The remaining prints were consistent with Richard's fingerprints, but were not clear enough to identify positively. So when it comes to fingerprints on a beer bottle, your fingerprints have characteristics, and in order to have that positive match, you need to have a certain number of characteristics that match the original fingerprint they're cross-examining, and that's how they can say there was a positive match. I'm not sure what that number is, but it's not clear enough to identify positively because there must not have been enough characteristics to say that, but there were some that matched his fingerprint. The expert witness also testified that none of the prints found on the bottle matched the fingerprints of Kim's. Richard testified in his own defense. He acknowledged that on the night in question, he went to Mr. Barry's with a group of relatives and friends. He testified that sometime after he arrived at the bar, Kim approached him and asked if he wanted to dance. He stated that she seemed a little high at the time. They danced for a couple of minutes, they talked for a couple of minutes, they talked some more, or they danced some more, and then he kissed her. They sat down at a table and talked and kissed a few more times. At one point, he had tried to give Kim some money to buy a drink for her, but she told him that she had been cut off by one of the bouncers and that he would have to get it for her. So again, being cut off means the bartender will not serve you any more alcohol. He estimated that the two sat together at a table in the rear of the bar for 45 minutes to about an hour. About 10 minutes before he left the bar, he told Kim that he would be leaving. They went to the back door rather than the front because he turned around to tell his sister he was leaving, and Kim was already heading out the back door, and he simply just followed her. Richard stated that as far as he was concerned, when they left the bar, he was not interested in pursuing any further sexual activity with Kim. When they got outside, they kissed again briefly and then walked around the building to his car in the front parking lot of the bar. Richard stated that he was carrying a bottle of beer at the time and that he was feeling kind of drunk when he got to his car and gave the bottle, which was still about half full, to Kim. Remember, like, she was cut off, so he had to have bought the alcohol and then gave it to her. But if you remember what the expert witness said, she said that none of the prints matched Kim. So this is contradictory to what Richard is saying. Richard said when he last saw Kim, she was walking back towards the front door of the bar. Again, contradicting what the other patrons saying, how when they left the bar, did not see either of them again. He denied entering the walkway in which Kim's body was found and denied sexually assaulting or killing Kim. Richard testified that he drove directly to from Mr. Barry's to the home of his girlfriend, Norma Avila, who was pregnant with his baby. He arrived at Norma's home around 1:30 and went to sleep. When he learned a few days later that the police were looking for him, he voluntarily went to the police station where he was arrested. Norma testified, and she confirmed that Richard arrived at her house at 1:30 on the night in question. She stated that nothing unusual about his conduct or demeanor when he arrived. They talked for a few minutes, and then they went to sleep. The defense also brought in testimony that there was a bar that was in the back, like that back where, like the dark back, there was another bar right there. And in Richard's defense, they were saying it could have been one of those patrons that were at that bar that killed Kim, and it wasn't Richard. So then the guilt phase went to jury deliberations, and it took more than 3 days of deliberations. Then the jury returned a verdict. They found Richard guilty of first-degree murder, rape, sodomy, and that he used a deadly weapon in the commission of all three offenses. The jury found true special circumstances of murder during the commission or attempted commission of rape and of sodomy. So how the death penalty works: in order to have a capital case in California, prosecution has to charge the defendant with a crime, and then I believe it's section 192.3. I could be completely off with that penal code, but there's these special circumstances that make the case a capital case, and one of them is rape murder, sodomy murder, there's burglary murder, robbery murder, lying in wait, And so they will charge the defendant with first-degree murder and then special circumstance, well, rape, and then special circumstance is that it was a rape murder. So during the course of raping the victim, he killed her. It could be by accident, it could be deliberate, but during the commission or attempted commission of a crime, another crime more severe happened. So this special circumstance was saying in the commission or attempted commission of rape and sodomy, murder happened. And the jury found true of the special circumstances, so now it moves into the penalty phase. And that's where there are victims' family comes in and they speak. If there's those that survive, they come and speak. And then jury will deliberate to give death or life without the possibility of parole. So after the guilt phase, we have the penalty phase. And the first jury was unable to unanimously agree on the penalty, so court declared a mistrial. Since the defendant, Richard, was already found guilty of the crime, but there was a mistrial in the penalty phase, so now they're just only going to retry that penalty phase, and the new jury will deliberate death or life without the possibility of parole. So the second jury returned a verdict of death after 1 day of deliberation. The trial court entered a judgment of death. June 14th, 1990, the Supreme Court of California decided on Richard's case, and they affirmed the judgment. However, on February 8th, 2008, his conviction was overturned after the jury foreman failed to disclose that he was an FBI candidate. When you're going through voir dire, which is where they question jurors, and to find who's going to sit in this trial, you have to tell the court, the judge, and the attorneys, defense and prosecutor, all sorts of information. And one of them, which is important, is if you're an FBI candidate because of the type of training, and you can already have a biased mind, and it's something they want to know, because if defense wants to excuse you, they can, or if they can find cause, they can find cause, and then usually the judge will dismiss you if you're gone for cause. So Richard was retried in 2013, and a jury found him guilty, and then at the penalty phase, there was a mistrial was declared. On November 24th, 2014, a jury returned a verdict of death. So the original in 1985, he was found guilty and then sentenced to death. So he can appeal this 2014 new death sentence if there's any jury misconduct, which is the jury foreman failed to disclose that he's an FBI candidate. There could be new holes that happened at this new trial that he can have an appeal. But as of right now, the court action listed on California's corrections, it does say court action is affirmed from that 1990 judgment. But he could appeal this new judgment that happened 6 years ago. So where is Richard Raymond Ramirez today? He currently sits on death row at San Quentin. If you take the time from when he first arrived, August 15th of 1985, to today, it's been 34 years. It'll be 35 August 15th. So that's where he is today. Thank you for joining us. Come back again next time, and who knows who we'll talk about. Thank you.